Alright, so today we're going to be talking about the management of Bring Your Own Device, BYOD, for Android devices. There's a lot of information out there for the management of iOS devices, and you can do that with pretty much any Apple MDM on the market. We just happen to use Jamf where I work, but you could use anything from Bravas to Simple MDM to Kanji or Jump Cloud. Mosel is also a great option. Lots of really great solutions and lots of really great information out there. I've even written a blog, and I'll put a link here below where you can get more information about user enrollment with iOS devices or Apple-based devices. So lots of great information there, but not a lot of great information in terms of how do you manage Android devices. And if you are a Google subscriber, you use Google Workspace, then you already have the ability to manage devices directly within your Google Workspace account. So we're not going to talk about that in this video. We're going to be talking about how do we do that, how do we manage Android devices with Microsoft Intune. So you're a Windows subscriber, you're subscribing to the Office 365 ecosystem. You have your email through that platform. Maybe you use Azure. You're already maybe using Intune to manage your Windows fleet. So how do we use or how do we leverage the Intune ecosystem for the management of Bring Your Own Device for Android devices? Well, it's really something that I think Microsoft has done well is they've partnered with Google in the integration with the Google Play ecosystem and allowed a lot of really great interactions between the Google Sphere, Android, and the management of devices. So I'm just going to walk you through this article online that talks a little bit about how to integrate these two systems. So the first thing that you're going to need is you're going to need an Office 365 account. You're going to need to be an administrator. You're going to need to have access to create a administrator account on the Google Play ecosystem. So I'm going to go ahead and you can see I'm logged into my Office 365 ecosystem. You can see here that I am signed in with my little playground account here over at Breed Labs. And I am logged into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. So what I need to do is I need to go to Microsoft Intune, and I'm going to go ahead and just sign in with my account. And we also need to sign into Azure as well, because we're going to be talking a little bit, intra. So we're going to be talking about the concept of managing devices, but also we're going to be talking about the concept of doing so with a zero trust mindset. So in the article, it basically says the first thing you have to do is go to the Intune Admin Center, go to Devices and Enrollment, and then click on the Android tab. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to click on Devices. We're going to go to Android. And within this environment, we can see we have an enrollment tab. So the very first thing, the prerequisite, is we need to connect this to a managed Google Play account. I do not have one of those accounts, so I am going to go ahead and create that. So I am going to go ahead and click on these links here. I'm going to click on I agree, and then we click on Launch Google to connect now. Now it's going to pop up an option here. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of follow these prompts. I'm going to sign in with my Microsoft account. I'm going to consent and accept. I'm going to set my company name, and no, I don't want any spam email. And this is enough. All we need is this Android Enterprise subscription, and it's free, as you can see. And I agree, and allow and create account. So, free process. I'm setting this up with my Microsoft account through Google, and I'm essentially authorizing the Microsoft Intune ecosystem to manage applications that are enrolled with my company information. Now, a lot of times while we wait for this, we need to think about BYOD very holistically. So not only do we want to make sure that if we are offering a BYOD program, we're doing it for people who have Android devices and Apple devices, people who have Windows devices and Apple devices. So any kind of device that someone could bring into your work ecosystem, you have to have a way of managing that, and you have to have rules set up for how you want to interact with them, or how do you want to manage them. Okay, so now that I have this set up, we are essentially going to be configuring the personally owned devices with work profile. So we can see here information about that. There isn't a lot of steps that you need to take specifically. This prerequisite is the step that you really need to have done. But now we're going to set up some configurations. So we want to create the baseline standard of security for our, for our managed bring your own device. So I am going to go with Android Enterprise, and we're going to stick with these personally owned work profile. So we only want to restrict settings specifically within the context of the work profile. So Android is great because it creates an actual separation between personal and work on the end user's device. So we're not actually managing the information on the personal side of the device. We are managing the settings and elements on the work profile. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on device restrictions, and we're going to set up some common bring your own device Android restrictions. So we're not going to do a lot of restrictions, but we want to make sure that we are blocking cutting and pasting between the work and personal profiles. And that is a device, that's the default. That's all on the moment you create this profile. We don't want to, we're just going to select device default where it says data and sharing between work and personal profiles. Work profile notifications while device is locked. We're going to go ahead and block that. Default app permissions, we're going to keep those standard. Screen capture, we're going to block. We're going to allow sharing via Bluetooth, because we have found that if you turn this off, connections between Bluetooth keyboards and headphones can be disrupted. Display work contact caller ID and personal profile, we're going to block that. We're going to allow the use of the camera, and we're going to keep all of these other items as default. For all the Android devices, we're going to require a passcode specifically for the work ecosystem. And we are going to have the phone lock after 1 minute of inactivity. We're going to require threat scan on apps, and we're going to make sure that we prevent installation of unknown sources in the personal profile. We don't have an always on VPN. We're not going to enable lockdown mode. And that's it. We're going to go ahead and just scope this to all devices. If you were setting this up in your ecosystem, I would highly recommend scoping this to a specific group. In fact, let's just go ahead and go through the process of creating a group. So we're in Entra, if I go to groups, all groups, I'm actually just going to do it. I'm going to create a new group and I'm going to call it Android BYOD. No users, no devices assigned just yet. I'm going to add a group, Android BYOD, there it is. Next, create. All right, so now we have a configuration. I'm going to go ahead and just create a couple more. I'm just going to set a Wi-Fi. Okay, I'm going to set up Wi-Fi. I'm going to add this to a specific group again, Android BYOD, next, create. Okay, so now I've created all the restrictions that I want to create. If I go back to Android, you can see that I have 2 configurations. Just letting that load here. Now that I have configurations set up, I need to set what is my standard for what constitutes device compliance. So I think a lot of people get compliance and configuration confused because they think, well, I'm going to create a compliance profile and that compliance profile is going to enforce security settings. No, compliance in this context is reporting on the state of settings that you define as the compliant level, and if the device has that setting, then it will be marked as compliant. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to click on compliance, and we see here that we already have a default compliance policy. If I click on properties and I click on edit, I can edit the compliance settings and I can see what options we have here. So I can set this to say I want this device to have a low, require this device to be at or under the low machine risk score. Devices managed with the device administrator. Rooted devices block. Google Play Protect is configured. We want that, we want that, we want that. Remember, we just set these as configuration properties. I'm not going to set the minimum OS version just yet. I do want the device to be encrypted. I do want to block apps from unknown sources. We do want to require this. And I'm going to leave everything else the default. Require a password? Yes, require. Now I'm going to save these policies. Now I have my compliance profile, which is outlining what I am requiring the device to be at in terms of configurations or settings for the device to be marked as compliant. All right, next step, we need to go into our Azure environment, and this is just the intra.microsoft.com. You can also get there by going to azure.microsoft.com. This is a part of your Office 365 subscription, and we are going to go into conditional access rules. Conditional access. Here it is, Microsoft Entra conditional access. And within conditional access, we're going to set up a few policies. So a few conditions that people must follow when they interact with your Office 365 ecosystem. So if we click up here, we can see that we have several policy templates. I love these because we can actually set up our entire program with a few simple clicks. So we want to require multi-factor authentication for admins. We definitely want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on review and create. And I'm just going to put this in report only for now. Report only means that it's not going to enforce the condition yet until we get more information about how it might be operating within our ecosystem. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to require multi-factor authentication for all users. Let's keep it in report only. That way it will create itself. Okay, great. All right, next thing we want to do is we want to require MDM enrolled and compliant device to access cloud apps. So this is otherwise known as zero trust. So if we click on zero trust up here, we can see that a lot of the policies that we just set up, this require multi-factor for admins, require multi-factor for all users, securing security info registration, and blocking legacy authentication. These are zero trust policies. Now, one of the policies, there's also a remote work policy. So again, a lot of these have similarities in them. Okay, use application enforce restrictions, no persistent browser session, require blah blah blah. So there's a lot of really great templates in here. So protecting administrator, emerging threats. So really good stuff. We're gonna just stick with require MDM enrolled and compliant device to access cloud apps for all users. So we're going to go ahead and press next. And I want to keep this on report only for now. All right, now let's get into these conditional access policies. All right, so I'm going to go back to conditional access, and we're going to look at the policies that we've created so far. All right, so we're going to start with this require MDM. So again, BYOD, the whole point of this is if you want to use our services, you have to enroll your device, which puts it into the MDM. We're talking about Android in this video. And let's take a look. We're scoping this to all users. Just for the sake of this, I'm going to just select me as the person who it's targeting so that I can test this before applying it to everybody. Let's click on target resources. So we're basically saying all cloud apps. Now I have seen some issues. Now if you use single sign-on, which is something that's highly recommended if you're going to be setting up a zero trust network. But if you use Office 365 for single sign-on, let's say for box.com, and you are blocking access to box.com for authentication using Office 365, and it would fall under the umbrella of all resources, and it could be kind of a catch-22. If the device isn't yet enrolled, they won't be able to access Box, but they can't access Box because the device isn't enrolled. So I tend to select specific resources instead of blanketing the entirety of the Office 365 environment, and I stick to Office 365 and the admin portals. This seems to work really well for my needs. All right, so now I've got my target resources. Now what I need to do, if I wanted to specifically set up this policy just for a specific device platform, I could do that by pressing configure, and I can select just Android. But I don't want to. I want this to apply to all devices, so we're going to go ahead and keep that as not configured. And finally, where it says grant, we have to make sure that the device is marked as compliant. So I'm going to go ahead and press select. I'm going to turn this on, and I am going to, it says security defaults must be disabled to enable conditional access policy. Okay. Properties, and where it says security defaults, we are going to turn off our security defaults. So we're going to go ahead and disable that. Now that that's disabled, we should be able to go back into our conditional access policies and actually turn some of these on. So you can see here that it turned on the properties that it recommended for me automatically, which is great. Which just means that these policies are now redundant. We can go ahead and just delete them. Now we want to enable this one, so we're going to say yes. And now this is on. So now it's going to require a compliant device in order to enroll. Now, remember how I said I can just target this to specific devices? I'm going to go ahead and do that just for the sake of this tutorial because we're only talking about Android and I don't want to lock myself out while I'm recording this on my Apple device. All right, so now I have that conditional access policy in place and I am good to go. So now I have my Android environment. I have my conditions set up. The final thing I need to do is have a few of my work apps installed on my Android device when the device is enrolled. And you can see here that there's 4 tools or apps that are added for me, but I have not yet assigned them. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on the properties and we have to set up an assignment. I'm going to add a group and I'm going to scope this to the Android BYOD group. We're going to just do that for the remaining of the remaining applications here. And I'm setting this up in the required area. That way, when the device automatically enrolls, it will get these applications. Assignments, there we go, add a group, BYOD. All right, so now these are all assigned. I'm going to add 2 more apps. I'm going to click on Manage Google Play App and select. And we are going to add the Google Chrome app. So you select it, you click Select, and then you press sync. Not super intuitive, but now it's going to sync over. I'm going to add 1 more app. And I am going to go ahead and add Dropbox. Select and sync. So these 2 apps will show up here once they've synchronized into my ecosystem. Again, this is that connection that we created with our Google Play Enterprise account and the connection in with Intune. So there is Google Chrome. It comes in unassigned, so I'm going to go ahead and assign it to all members of the BYOD group. And then I am going to refresh until we see Dropbox in the list here. And there it is. And we're going to assign that also to the BYOD group. All right. So now we have our entire ecosystem set up. We have it set up where if I'm an Android user and I want to access a company resource, I have to enroll my device. So now we need to test this out and make sure that it works. Good news is it should work. Bad news is I don't actually have an Android device. I have only Apple devices. So in that situation, what do I do? Well, the easiest way to handle this is to open up Android Studio. Android Studio is a open source or a free developer tool that Google Android has put out there, and you can download this and launch this on a variety of devices, so Windows, Apple, etc. And we already have this installed, so I'm going to go ahead and just open it up. Android Studio. So here it is, and I'm going to create a new project. File, new project. And the installation, by the way, of Android Studio is very simple. Once it downloads, you drag it into your applications folder. If you're on a Mac, you double click the installer if you're on Windows, and you're presented with this sort of like splash screen and the ability to create a project. So whenever I'm just trying to test something on a virtualized device inside of Android Studio, I always just click empty activity because I'm not actually creating an app, and I'm just going to call it BYOD test and press finish. So now that I have my Android Studio ecosystem, I can go to Tools up here in the menu bar, and I can go to Device Manager, and that brings over my Device Manager, and I have the ability to create a virtual device. Now, we need to make sure that we pick a device that's new enough and also has the Google Play Store pre-installed. So you see how we have this column that says Play Store, and we see this icon, the Google Play icon, indicating that, in fact, it does have Google Play pre-installed. If I press next, it'll ask me to confirm the operating system that I want, and you need to make sure, again, that it has in brackets Google Play, because if it doesn't have the Google Play app pre-installed, then you're going to have to start over again, as we need to install the company portal app in order to manage the device. All right, so I'm just going to call it, yep, this looks fine. I'm going to click on finish, and here is my device here. So I'm going to go ahead and just start this device. Just going to make this a little bit bigger so that it's easier to see the device. So it's connecting to the emulator. It's booting up the Android phone. And it's going to automatically put me into a mode here where I need to sign in to personalize the device. Now, first thing you have to do is you have to go into the settings on the phone, and you need to make sure that the SIM card has mobile data turned off. This in the emulator causes some disruption in terms of the bridged internet connection that you're sharing with your Mac or PC to the phone itself. So I just turn that off and get rid of that. All right, next step is to sign in with the Google Play Store. So it's going to check your account, check your device for eligibility, and then you have to sign in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that by opening up my password manager here just off screen, and I'm going to cut and paste my Google account info into this phone. And it does have to be registered with a Google account, and you'll find that your Android users tend to have this. All right, so it's telling me that I need to open up the app on my phone. So I'm doing that now to verify my identity. Yes, it's me. And I'm going to go ahead and set up my fake device here. All right. Don't want to do anything like backups. And now I am in to my device. I want to install the company portal app. So we're going to just click through all these and search for company portal. There it is. And we're going to install it. Now before I install it, we're going to test to see if I can actually access my Microsoft account. I'm going to skip this for now. Alright, so while this is installing, what we're going to do here is we're going to just open up a web browser and we are going to just go to office.com and we're just going to try to sign in with my company credentials. Alright, so now I am signed in. And what I am going to do here is I'm just going to try to set up the mail. So I'm going to open up settings and I'm going to attempt to add an account. Actually, I'm going to skip over that because I'm not actually using email in my Office 365 environment. But let's go ahead and just open up the company portal so we can illustrate what the enrollment process looks like. I'm going to go ahead and just sign in here with my Microsoft account. What I was trying to illustrate before was we should have received a warning telling us that signing with Microsoft is not allowed on this device because it's not yet managed. I might not have set up that conditional access policy correctly for that exact purpose, but this is what activation looks like. Once we have this app installed, it's going to allow us to create a work profile. Here are the things that it can what the MDM can do. Here's what the company might see, and then it's going to go ahead and facilitate the creation of that work profile environment on the device. We're going to accept and configure, accept and continue. Work apps, as explained here, are being separated from personal apps, and it's setting up the work profile now. And we are done. Next, company portal is going to validate everything and it's going to activate the work profile. We're going to continue that process. And it is now registering the device. It's adding the device to the company portal, which means that if I go back to Intune here, I should be able. Here we are. If we go to devices and Android, we should eventually see our new device show up in the platform. And we are done and got it. So this is the device, and we're just going to check to see if it is compliant. Now remember, the settings and compliance not going to trigger until we put this device in the group that we created. So if we go back into our group area and we look at our BYOD group, we need to make sure that we are adding that member, that device member, here it is, to the group. Now that this device is a part of the group, everything that is scoped to the group will apply to the device. So this is part of my workflow typically. So I'm going to check device settings, which is going to force the device to check in to Intune, and it's going to check to see if the device is compliant. It's going to apply those security standards, and it's going to install those 2 work apps that we told it to install. So Chrome and Dropbox. So while that is confirming the device settings, we're just going to go back into our Intune ecosystem and confirm that we see the device. It hasn't shown up just yet here, but that's okay. We were still able to see it in the group area, and if we click on it here in the group area, we can disable it, delete it, manage it. And if we click on manage, it will bring us right into the device management for that specific device. And I just like to hit the sync button right here because that also reinforces this connection from the cloud down to the device and helps speed things up just a tad. Go back to devices and let's go to Android. Here we can see that the device has showed up. If we click on managed apps, we can see that they are pending installation status. And if I go back to the company portal app and now click on get apps, I should eventually see applications installing here. And we can see that they are in queue, and we can see that the device configuration is being applied, and it says here that it can take up to 20 minutes for this to all propagate down. The whole point of this being that yes, it can take some time, but now at least you have a way that you can test what the actual experience is like for people who have Android devices. So we have our work profile, we have our personal profile, and now we can access specific company resources. If you found this video helpful, give me a like and subscribe. Until next time.